Hello and welcome to another pasta chat. There is pasta this time. The sauce is cooking. Pasta's cooking. It's very hot. It is very warm. I have worn this heavy polo shirt because I know Neshavan, my good friend, loves seeing me in it. So it's for him. So Neshavan, this is for you. So we're going to talk about a couple of people. I didn't do a Q&A, but I asked a few people what they wanted to hear in the next pasta chat, and they wanted to talk about injuries, which obviously I'm injured at the moment. So I'm just going to rant off my thoughts on injury, as always, unscripted, unedited, just my random thoughts while I'm waiting for the pasta to cook. So I have had many injuries, and I generally have just been, since starting weightlifting, have spent more time injured than not, probably. It's probably close, actually. Obviously, with something like weightlifting, you always have little niggles, and that's fine. But in terms of, I've always had injuries that I couldn't actually weightlift properly. Now, every time you get injured, you increase the chance of getting injured again, I believe. You also, though, you do learn something every time, and you do increase your knowledge every time. So I don't think I've ever made the same mistake twice in terms of getting injured. I have learned a lot from, people like Chris, Speed, Mehmed, Claire, just loads of different people who have incredibly different styles and ideas and experiences, and I've learned from them. And as a result, I've kind of come up with my own kind of, not solution, but kind of pathway out of it. Now, injury, just like any other trauma, is you still have to go through, you do still actually go through the grieving process, but once you kind of get out of that denial phase and the depression phase, you do get this resurgent spark of energy and motivation and drive to keep going forward. So my goal with it has been, this current injury is tendonitis in both my knees. Now, my thinking was, and this is the way I tend to think about it, is if the best version of me as an athlete would be 10 out of 10, let's say, on an arbitrary scale of 10, me at my absolute peak would be 10. Just because I can't use my knees, it doesn't mean that I can't push myself up to 9.5, 9.9, for when I get back to lifting. So my kind of motivation has been push everything else as much as possible so that when you get back to weightlifting, you are the best athlete you've ever been. You're just an incredible athlete, and that just pulls you through. Now, because of this, I've trained incredibly hard the last couple of weeks, albeit doing different things, twice a day most days, a lot of mobility, etc. Now, I would say that my return has gone quicker than my physio, who I see currently, planned. So I did some jumps today, jump and stick, jump and land, not rebounding jumps, and he said that wasn't going to be capable for another couple of weeks. So we're ahead of schedule, probably because I've built up everything else. I have a long training history anyway, so I'm already in a decent place. But my advice for people who are injured is try and take that mindset. Now, definitely seek help, physios, osteos, whatever. Speak to people with experience, even other lifters who've had the same thing. I would say try to speak to as many different people as possible, but then make your own logical conclusions through trial and error. Definitely seek help, but then just push everything else as much as you can. So for me, it's been, I push RDLs a lot. Now, my back has traditionally not been super incredibly strong. I think now it's the biggest strength I've got. Now, I did strain it a little bit last week. I think I just went too hard, and I was doing some heavy pulls kind of every day. It's fine now. I did some RDLs today. It's absolutely fine. It's a little bit tight, but that's it. I think to the point where now that's actually a real strength. I've been pushing my upper body stuff quite a lot. That's been a huge weakness, basically forever. And anyone who follows this saw that I got that strict press 100 kilo PB, so there's a 15 kilo increment. I'm probably going to push for 110 before I get back to lifting. And I just know that when I get back to weightlifting, I'll have that reserve, and that my pyramid, if you think about a performance pyramid, this is all the base stuff at the bottom, and it peaks towards top weightlifting performance. So the top is kind of snatch and clean jerk, and then if you build that base as bigger as possible, the wider the base, the higher the peak. So if I can build that as much as possible. So that's my general motivation. Now, I get a lot of injuries, I think, because obviously train like an idiot sometimes is just the biggest thing. So I think training load and volumes obviously do come into play. I think a lot of it with me stems from having Erb's palsy from a child. Now, people can say all they want about me currently, saying, oh, your shoulders are really good now, you're really balanced. I was like, well, that's all well and good, but it doesn't take away from the fact that for the first 3 or 4 years of weightlifting, it wasn't. And that's just compounding that kind of imbalance, that kind of side-to-side difference, or that maybe that rotational difference, and that obviously just some muscles get tighter, etc., etc. So that doesn't take into account, that's all well and good, but that doesn't take into account that, and that then has a knock-on effect down my back, down my hips, down my legs, because of that imbalance in the shoulder. Now it is, you know, like I said, obviously it is getting better, and no human body is perfectly balanced. We know that because obviously organs are in different, certain organs are on one side of the body, for example, so the rib cage will be not perfectly, well, the muscles around the rib cage won't be perfectly balanced from side to side. The only other main thing I wanted to say was obviously this whole thing about rush slowly that Mem's told us, and I've been harping on to everyone about. I think personally, so when I first started this at no weightlifting, just doing S&C stuff, obviously I didn't rush slowly with the RDLs, etc. Learned my lesson. Probably will never make that mistake again. History tells me that usually happens, that I don't make the same mistake. So it's going to be about being unbelievably patient, rushing as slowly as possible, being as patient as possible, and not lifting within the confines of tremendous pain. Now, you're going to, at some point, you're going to have to kind of bottle up and go through kind of very uncomfortable, you know, phases where your body's sore and tight and stuff, and that's fine. But I think I got to a point where it was just like debilitating pain. Couldn't, you know, walk around the house, couldn't do anything. Was on a lot of painkillers, etc. And that's my fault. I just kept pushing, and obviously it got to a point where it was just unbearable. I couldn't sit down on the toilet. I couldn't get up from chairs. I had to like fall into chairs and kind of fall on the floor and then downward dog, inchworm up into. So my hamstrings got mobility, but I actually just use my shoulders basically. So work around it as much as possible, but within reason. So don't just do what I did and just drastically push one thing. Push everything. Become the best athlete you can be. So that's where that kind of strength and conditioning comes into play. And when you then get back to weightlifting, don't just forget about everything you've done. Keep some rotational work in. Now, we're not going to be the best athletes ever because we're weightlifters, and that's our focus, it's just on weightlifting. But that doesn't mean you don't stop doing single leg work, for example, rotational work, core stuff, side bending, anything that keeps you healthy as possible. Just on the things like the single leg stuff, just don't go absolutely mental with the intensity. Push the relative intensity as much as possible, but I would probably limit the actual max intensity. That's what I've learned. Similarly with RDLs, actually, get your stimulus, get your training stimulus, and don't end yourself. So that's something that I've learned just from mistakes and experience. So don't kind of destroy yourself with that, but still work as hard as you can. Otherwise, try and get back to what you're doing as quickly as possible. Now, the only other kind of bit of advice I would have is, especially working with tendonitis, is the guidelines that physios and health professionals, etc., will give you are just guidelines in terms of time frames. So I did some lifting already. Now again, whether that was smart or not, we'll soon find out. But this was a couple of days ago. I have absolutely no pain during or after, and I was told that if you don't have pain 24 hours after, it's probably going to be okay to do that activity. Now, obviously, this was just the empty bar snatch, empty bar clean jerk. I'm not going heavy, and I won't go for another week or so. But I wasn't predicted to do that for another kind of 5 to 6 weeks. So work as hard as you can, and these things will go better than if you think. And then obviously be as smart as you can with eating, with sleeping, with recovery. Obviously just be as smart as you can in that sense. Other than that, injuries are shit. Your mental health goes down the drain, so look after that as best you can by speaking to people and try to have something that excites you. So don't get me wrong, like I would love to do snatch and clean jerk every day. I want to, but obviously now I can't, so my mental health takes a hit. I then look to things like RDLs, overhead press, things that they do actually excite me and they do get me amped up to train. So that's good. And that's all you need. Something to just keep you ticking over, some kind of passion, something that gets you excited and gets you out of bed. Otherwise, have fun. If anyone, stay safe, train smart. If anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Ask in the comments. If you've got any opinions, let me know. Have a wonderful day.